I just put my status as saying I am at the Rajiv Gandhi International Airport and I am traveling to Delhi. Now what effectively that happens is that my friends on Facebook know that I am not in the city that day. There is no point in calling me. My office staff, whom I don't even inform where I am going sometimes, know that I am not available for calls that day or for meetings that day. I am still available on the email and the phone if required. Okay, so that is what I often say to people, that look, an ordinary mobile phone can capture and tell a lot about what you're doing. So social media is not just about putting a joke on Facebook or a picture on Instagram. It goes far beyond it. So use it as a working tool. So when you look at a newspaper as such and look at a newspaper reading habit, today the declining, I don't know how many of you read more than one newspaper. I know it's a part of your job, you may say you read 5 newspapers. But in general, how many of you would read more than 1 or 2 newspapers? More than 1? Okay, more than 2? I read 7, and I'm sure many of us who are in this industry who have to read because we have to read, actually read about 5 to 6 newspapers just to keep track of what is happening in each news, because one is a political newspaper, one is an economic newspaper, one is a general newspaper, one claims to be India's national newspaper. So we've got to read everything, to keep track of where we are going. But surprisingly, if you notice, I don't know how many of you notice, and those of you in the Topcom would know this for sure, that we have been told when we grow up with the IRS and NRS surveys and all that, and Ratnaka would watch for it when we do readership surveys for our clients. Quite often we talk of vernacular dailies. We say that vernacular dailies have far better, bigger readership. For example, I don't know how many of you know which is India's largest newspaper producing state. Kerala. Now very obvious that why? Because one, the literacy levels are high. Second, there's a newspaper reading habit. If you go to a Kerala coffee shop in the morning or tea shop in the morning, which there exists everywhere, I believe even on the moon, we actually see people reading a newspaper and others listening to it. If you go to the rural part of Kerala, and I'm sure this happens in the north also, and I'm not really traveled that extensively, but my take on that is that when you talk of vernacular media has a huge reach, but it has its own negatives. It doesn't get advertising. If you see advertising, you never see a Mercedes car being advertised on a Navbharat Times. It never happens. Or a Maharashtra Times or Lokmat or any of those dailies. You never see that because they consider vernacular dailies as below the line advertising. But what is happening worryingly, I mean this used to happen when I was a college student. I remember India Today used to have 200 and odd pages of reading matter. Today I don't know whether India Today is published or not because I never seen one in the recent times.
It is published with very...
Yeah, 120 pages, 25 pages and all that. Why? Because everything is correlated to advertising, and I'm proud that as an organization I work with Times of India, which many of you may have differences, even I have differences with in terms of the editorial slant. But what effectively happens is that if you don't make profit, you have to close down. There's no emotional attachment. And I remember when we closed down the Illustrated Weekly of India, which is considered a very hallowed newspaper those days, a magazine, there was a lot of hue and cry from people saying, how did you close down a publication like Illustrated Weekly of India? My grandfather has been reading it. My father has been reading it, I have been reading it, how can you close it down? But as Mr. Jain used to say, Samir Jain, that there is no emotions in business. Unlike a publisher undertaking, we don't have the luxury of saying we will continue, or like Air India keeps flogging its dead horse till it dies, but we don't have that luxury in running media. Media will survive purely on profit. Let's be very clear about it.